Well, good day, and welcome to the Health and Stress edition of 5 Minute Psych. In this 5-minute segment, we'll explore how we respond to stress by focusing on 3 different levels of our stress reaction: emotional, physiological, and behavioral. We'll see that we have many ways of coping with a stressful event, and some are better for us than others. We have to remember that it isn't the event itself that triggers our stress response, but it's our appraisal of that event. So whether we're in a job interview, sitting in traffic, getting married, or escaping from a house fire, it doesn't matter. For it to cause stress, we have to believe that the event is not only threatening, but that our skills aren't enough to handle it. With that idea in our head, the stress response ensues, and we see 3 types of reactions. Stressful events can trigger an array of emotional reactions from the negative end of the spectrum, feelings like anger, sadness, or fear. Sometimes we don't feel these reactions until after the event is over, like escaping from a house fire and feeling nothing until you get outside to safety, and then you go through the emotional reactions. And sometimes after the fact, positive emotions surface, like gratitude or happiness for having made it through. But yes, let's face it, emotionally, stress makes us feel bad. Physiologically, our bodies were designed to deal with stress in many ways, as stress triggers our fight or flight response. Now, this response was likely very useful for our ancestors when faced with predators and they would have to defend themselves and their family. But today, this same response gets triggered by things like writing a difficult exam or waiting in line, and our fight or flight response does nothing to help us with those things. There are 2 pathways that extend from the hypothalamus to the body that are activated for fight or flight. Path 1 goes from the hypothalamus to the sympathetic nervous system, which triggers the adrenal medulla to release catecholamines that get the body energized. This pathway gets activated very quickly, and it also dissipates quickly, returning to normal levels within 15 minutes after the threat is gone. Path 2 also starts in the hypothalamus, but this one activates the pituitary gland, which stimulates the adrenal cortex to release corticosteroids. These also increase energy, but they also prevent tissue inflammation in case of injury. Path 2 is activated much more slowly, and if it stays activated for too long, it decreases immune functioning, and then this is when you see stress take a toll on our health. Behavioral reactions to stress are called coping mechanisms, and we have some good and bad ways of coping. Let's start with the bad, or the things that don't help and may even make things worse. First, some of us react to stress by showing learned helplessness, which is a passive giving up response. Likely a response like this comes from many previous exposures to uncontrollable stressful events, and this is how they've learned to cope. Others might react by lashing out at others, feeling a temporary relief from releasing that surge of negative emotion. But just like with learned helplessness, this reaction likely increases feelings of distress in the long run. Freud would say that some of us turn to defense mechanisms to deal with stress. He said we wouldn't know if we were doing this since they're unconscious, but using them isn't healthy because we're essentially lying to ourselves, denying that the email we sent to our boss was insulting, or rationalizing that what you said needed saying. Finally, some of us show more impulse control problems during stress, and we're more likely to eat, drink, smoke, gamble, shop, and so on. In the moment, these bad behaviors may make us feel better. It was such a beautiful sweater. But again, in the long run, our stress will still be there, plus the guilt of having done the bad behavior. So what's a better way of coping? Well, with problem-focused coping, we approach the problem directly. We assess the demands of the situation and evaluate our tools to handle it. For instance, if we're having problems with our boss, we might handle it by opening a discussion about the issue, trying to work it out together. But if this doesn't work, we could try emotion-focused coping, where we now deal with our emotional reaction to the stress. If we can't change the situation, the next best thing is to change how we respond to it and work on staying calm despite having to face the stress. If we have to sit in traffic, there's no point in getting angry about it. Instead, focus on staying calm and enjoying the ride. Well, we just looked at how we respond to stress by focusing on 3 different levels of our stress reaction: emotional, physiological, and behavioral. We saw that physiologically, our stress reaction may not be suited for our modern world, and that extensive stress can be harmful. We also saw that we have many ways of coping with a stressful event, and that some are better for us than others. Now, aren't you glad you had 5 minutes?